GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey guys, I'm Felissa Rose. This is Darcy DeMoss.
Hey, this is Deborah Voorhees.
Hi, this is Catherine Comia.
Hey everybody, this is Lauren Marie Taylor wishing you a happy Halloween. You are listening to the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robby Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the Rockstar Robby Vegas with your Happy Halloween edition of the All Bets Are Off podcast. So glad you guys are joining me this morning or tonight, depending on what you're doing with your spooky season. And today we are sticking with Halloween and doing a brief review and a re-ranking of the Halloween franchise. You remember my buddy Dan from Salem who did the Ouija board episode with us a few weeks ago. He is back today, and he will also be sharing his thoughts and his ranking, and Mike Burns, who is supposed to be here, cannot be, but we do have his ranking to read off for you guys anyways. So, before we get going, I want you to know that today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co. at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. So let's not keep you waiting, let's not keep Dan waiting, and let's get him on this Zoom call and talk some Halloween. Today's episode is brought to you by Anguished Allure magazine. Anguished Allure was founded in Buffalo and celebrates Halloween all year long. Anguished Allure magazine features gothic and horror-themed businesses, artists, and photographers. If you'd like to buy a copy and support them, or submit your own artwork or products, please reach out to them at anguishedalluremagazine.com. So one more time, that's anguishedalluremagazine.com. So please check them out. Support our sponsor, and they're more than a sponsor. We absolutely adore this magazine, and we know that you will too.
Hey everybody, this is Lauren Marie Taylor, creator and host of the Not the Final Girl podcast. Okay, so every horror fan remembers the final girl, right? You know, the one who can outrun and outsmart the Jasons, the Michaels, the Chuckies. I think you get it. But what about the girls and, the guys who met with an untimely end? Those of us who were tortured and tripped, dragged and killed. Don't we deserve some props? As Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2 and Sheila in Girls Night Out, I know what a drag it is to succumb to those masked and wardrobe-challenged killers, to not be the final girl. On my new podcast, I'll be chatting with other women of horror who share the same fate. Special guests include those final girls as well as the writers and directors who created our characters, only to give us an early expiration date. And if they play nice, we'll let some of those crazed killers of horror tell their side of the story. So join me, Lauren Marie Taylor, on the Not the Final Girl podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get the alerts when the episodes drop. Thanks for listening. Keep your doors locked and stay out of the woods.
Inhaler, prednisone, and I just had some Mucinex, so I'm ready.
All right, so we're just going to let the listeners know that you're battling a case of bronchitis, but you're so passionate about the Halloween franchise that you had to be here anyways.
Precisely.
So, I got to tell you, I'm pretty excited to do this.
I am too, and I think I said this on the Ouija episode as well, but I really appreciate you giving me a forum to talk about all these spooky things. Feels like on a weekly basis. It's really helped me bounce back from my acute respiratory syndrome over the past few weeks.
Now, I gotta say, you're probably a little upset because you wanted to dress up like Beetlejuice and be out there on the streets for all the tourists of Salem, and now because of your bronchitis, that is not happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a weekend left in October, so it's on me at this point. If I can go get, the black and white striped suit and have somebody help me with my makeup, maybe it'll still happen. But, I would be fine. I'm just happy to have my health back, and, if nothing else, I'll just watch Beetlejuice and act out scenes and pretend I'm Michael Keaton while it's on.
Well, so this episode that we're doing right now is actually going to air on Halloween. So it's going to drop Halloween morning, so it couldn't be more fitting that we're going to talk about the Halloween franchise. And this is your favorite franchise, right?
It is. It's been that way for a while. And I was actually going to ask you, I don't know what your history is with Halloween, but I'd be interested if you remember the first time that you saw the film, the original one, because I do, and it's kind of random. I was the youngest in the family, and I feel like my parents had kind of given up on disciplining the kids by the time I was, coming of age. Mind you, I was like 4 or 5 or 6 years old or something, and my mom would ask me what I was watching, and I would just say R, because it was rated R. At the beginning, I didn't know what anything was, but they didn't care, and I had seen all the Friday the 13th before I saw any of the Halloweens, I think, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and then my mom and my sister, I think, were like, oh, well, those aren't really scary. Halloween's really scary. I think they were just trying to, hype it up for me. But yeah, I remember it was like a family thing. We all sat down and watched it, and I think I was probably 6 years old, and I remember then going upstairs after the movie ended, and I was like, I wonder if Michael Myers is up there. So it really got into my head. Mm-hmm. And thought he was scarier than Jason and Freddy because it seemed more real. Like they just seemed too supernatural. Yeah. And just monstery. Mm-hmm. But he just seemed like a dude who murdered a mechanic and found a mask wherever and went for a ride to go kill some babysitters and one of their boyfriends. So yeah, it made an impression on me. And I think it goes back to what I was saying. I think he just feels... Obviously, he can't be killed and stuff. We found that out in later sequels, but he just felt like some dude that made it scarier to me as a little kid.
I agree. I also saw Halloween for the first time when I was somewhere around 6 or 7. I was already watching horror movies by then. I was watching the Friday the 13th and Fright Night and Jaws and things like that. And I remember I saw Halloween a few times on TV. And I went to Blockbuster and I saw it and I rented it because I never saw it without commercials. And I just wanted to see the movie straight through without the gaps, you know what I mean? And obviously then it's uncensored and all that stuff, and you finally see what the movie actually is, as opposed to on TV, you're getting all the swearing and everything else. And, I remember, specifically being like, oh, there's more than one of these. And then I had to go back and start renting the rest, you know what I mean? And it was, renting the VHS, that was always fun. You're going through and you're getting your bucket of, popcorn or whatever candies you're going to get, and you're picking out, all the horror movies. And that was... So my earliest memories of Halloween is I rented it more than once, and it was at a Blockbuster, and I just remember being amazed when I realized that it went beyond the one that I had been seeing on TV, and that I saw 2 and then 3 and 4, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, 3 must have been a supreme letdown for a little kid.
So I was surprised. I don't want to get too much into it because I want to talk about it when we, go through the movies, but I was just more so confused at what was actually happening. But I guess before we get into that, why don't we kind of go movie by movie and just give a brief summary, because I think Halloween 1 is a damn near perfect movie, and it's suspenseful and it's eerie and it's creepy and it's not overdone and it leaves so much to your imagination, and it's just so good. And it's to this day, it's one of my favorite movies. It's hard to pick a top 5 or a top 10 horror movie list. And my list would probably change frequently, but that one is a staple. It has to be in there. I
feel the same. It feels, looking back on it, or, I watch it every October, maybe even more than just once in a year, but it feels like a very simple movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very simple. I think that, the basic plot of it is pretty much like the synopses online would tell you. A guy kills his sister when he's a kid, breaks out of a mental hospital years and years later, and goes out to kill again. And Donald Pleasance is obviously going to come up a lot in these our rundown of all the films, but I feel like he really carried it, because they could have got somebody else to play Loomis, but you really got like a buy-in from him, and a lot of his just monologuing about Michael being evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's really like all there is to it. And the rest of it is just sort of, like you were saying, it's very atmospheric. It's got a great soundtrack, obviously, with John Carpenter.
Yeah.
It does feel, I don't know, the older I get, or like, I guess the more modern that a horror gets these days, and kind of over the top, it does feel a little dated to me, but again, it's from 1978, so
yeah.
I don't know that you can really ask for more than what you get on the screen.
I like the way that it feels dated, though. Like, now I think I might like it more than ever because of that. Because it's that feeling of, like, that suspensefulness of, like, you don't know where he is. He's outside her window, then he's gone. She sees him behind the bush, then he's gone. Like, he's not actually just running around slaughtering people. He's very patient. He's very particular. They don't have cell phones. They're not GPSing their way out of a situation. Like, they're stuck in this town with this guy that nobody can find. And to me, that's one of the scariest things you can imagine. Yeah.
I think that, for what the film is, they're able to build a lot of suspense throughout it. And kind of looks like, it reads to me nowadays like you're looking into a time capsule of, again, I would just go to the word simple. It's a simpler time. I think the scares were easier, and they just executed it really well. Mm-hmm. And if you think, I'm not going to say that there was like 0 slasher films before Halloween, but, that was the sort of benchmark one that came out that ended up being, a catalyst for a lot of copycat films.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to say about it, really. It's a benchmark, and it sets the tone for a lot of what came after it.
Yeah.
And I'm just impressed that everybody involved with it executed it as well as they did, because they basically came up with the formula.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of effects in general, like not even practical effects, because you really don't get a lot of gore and blood anyway. It's very much left to your mind to figure out what's going on. I think one of the only scenes in the first one where you get some blood is when he stabs Jamie Lee in the shoulder. But other than that, there's really not a whole lot of actual blood that you see, like, coming out of a body. You know what I mean?
Right, a lot of it was strangulation.
Yes.
He choked Danny and, what was the cheerleader's name?
Put me on the spot now. You're talking about PJ Soul's character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can just call her PJ.
Yeah, PJ.
Yeah,
we know the actress's name, but not her character's name.
What the hell was her name? Okay, so, he strangles them, but then he slits Annie's throat as, like, the culmination of that in the car.
Yeah.
And he stabs Bob against the wall.
Yes. Bob was kind of a weirdo. He might have deserved to be stabbed up against the wall.
Don't say that. Bob was a great man. They had great chemistry, too, him and PJ. Whatever her name may be. Linda Vanderklok?
I didn't know that was her last name.
I did not know that she... What is that, German?
I don't know. It's Dutch.
She was like an all-American blonde teenager.
Totally.
Cheerleader. Yeah, Bob seemed a little old for her.
He did. But then again, in the 70s, all the teenagers looked like they were 35, so...
That's true, yeah. Bob might have been held back for about 10 years.
Bob could have been 14 for all we know.
He might have actually been a coach or something.
Totally.
No, yeah, other than that, no real blood.
No.
I was actually literally just watching... Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I was literally just watching part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And part 2 seems so much like it was reactive to the horror films that Halloween inspired.
Yeah.
There's a lot more blood.
Yes, and I do really love part 2. I think it's a great follow-up. I think it's a great sequel. But you're right, there is more blood. I mean, we're going to be dropping spoilers here, people. I'm sorry if you haven't seen Halloween 1 and 2 from 1978 and 1980 or 81 or whatever.
81.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Go watch it anyways. It's still good. But there's the scene in the hospital where the younger EMT slips in the pool of blood.
Yeah.
And, like, just that alone is more blood than you get in all of Halloween 1.
Well, yeah, because for some reason, Michael had transfused all of that nurse's blood out of her body.
Yes.
Because he's into all of his projects and stuff. And,
of course.
stabs that Dr. Mixter, who was drunk.
Yeah.
Stabs him in the eye with, like, a syringe, and he stabs that other girl on the side of her head with a syringe.
Yes, and a very small town hospital too. It's not like a big, like, bustling, busy city hospital. It's a very small town feel, which it should be because that's what Haddonfield is. And I don't know, something about the way that hospital was portrayed, I think, made the movie very eerie to begin with before you even really start seeing Michael again. Yeah,
I've had this conversation with others. Halloween 2, I know I told that beautiful story about when I was 6 and I saw Halloween with my mom and my sister for the first time. I may very well have seen Halloween 2 before I saw Halloween 1.
Okay.
And I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. And, I'm a wordsmith and I can't figure out, like, what the word is for it. There's something about Halloween 2 that kind of makes me feel sick. I feel like it has something to do with the hospital.
Yeah.
It feels very claustrophobic to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's, part of the filmmaking, if they were able to, like, it just feels like you're trapped in there with them.
Yeah.
And I used to feel like the film had a pacing problem. I don't really feel that way so much anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the longest time, I wouldn't watch it because I just associated it with, like, this sort of, like, sickly or disturbing feeling.
Yeah.
That all being said, I love the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a great job. As far as sequels go, I know that John Carpenter hates it. I was watching something on YouTube recently and sort of, like, brushing up on all this stuff.
Yeah.
That he was, like, very beholden against... didn't want to sort of rest on the laurels of Halloween. He wanted to do other things.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, I think they did a bang-up job with the sequel, like the immediate sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that it is like just a continuation of that same night.
Yes.
It just feels kind of episodic. Like, it's what I would expect to happen right after the first film.
That's what I was just going to say. It's a continuation. To me, you can watch those movies back to back, and they flow perfect. And it's exactly what you would want. It's a little more amped up than the first one, just to keep you engaged, keep you interested. The setting is different because a lot of it, well, all of it takes place at the hospital. And I don't know, there's just a certain charm to it. And Michael is still played very much like Michael. He's very slow and paced and methodical. You get the same, like, organs in the background and piano and music and things like that. And that really adds to the suspense. And he didn't change. He didn't ramp up. He wasn't, like, aggravated and coming after her hardcore. He was just, emotionless Michael Myers who's just like a killing robot. And he doesn't run. He's just ready for you. And you don't know when he's coming, but he's watching you at all times. And I think that adds that element. It's the fact that John Carpenter doesn't like it almost surprises me because it's so similar to the first one.
Yeah. I mean, I think he just didn't want to rest on the laurels kind of thing, or feel like he was just basically going down the same path again, because he did want to do, other types of films and everything and not just be shackled to that character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they had said, it was at the 11th hour, they just decided, like, I guess we'll just make Jamie Lee his sister.
Yeah.
And then that'll sort of explain things.
Yeah.
I thought that was made perfect sense to me growing up. I was like, oh my god, it's his sister, that's why he wants to kill her.
Right. He wants to finish the job that he started, right?
Yeah, and, like, that ended up being a huge factor in, like, why there was even a story to tell throughout more sequels.
Yeah.
I did see, they had said in the interview with the production team and everything, that it really was kind of, building off the steam of Empire Strikes Back, and you find out that Vader's Luke's father, and they're like, oh, what if she's his sister? But, it didn't feel forced whatsoever. It was like, I thought that they did a great job with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love the scene where that nurse comes with the state marshal and grabs Loomis, and she divulges that secret.
Yes.
She said the judge just, opened this file that's been locked away for however long, and he's like, I've seen everything, and she's like, no, that's Michael Myers' sister. And then that really catalyzes, like, the last act of the film. They race back to the hospital to save her.
Yep.
But, no, I think they did a bang-up job with it. I'm kind of bummed. like John Carpenter cares that I'm bummed that he doesn't like the movie.
Well,
I wish everyone liked it.
The thing about Halloween 2 that I find is cool that maybe the casual viewer or the Halloween time viewers don't really care to know or never heard was that was supposed to be it for Michael Myers. So at the end, when they kill him, he was never meant to have any other sequels or movies, and the Halloween franchise was supposed to carry on and be a different situation every single 3, 4, 5, 6 to however many they were going to make, to 10, 20, whatever. It was never supposed to continue with Michael, which brings us to Halloween 3, because you don't see Michael Myers in Halloween 3 except for on a television set that's playing the original Halloween.
Right. And, oh boy, what can we say about 3?
Well,
I mean, I'm an enormous Tom Atkins fan.
Me too.
I loved him in Night of the Creeps. I loved him in Maniac Cop. A lot of garbage 80s films.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that if that movie, I don't know, I feel like I have a really fraught relationship with it, because I just don't understand what it's doing in the franchise.
Right.
I know what you're talking about with, like, okay, they wanted to have it be sort of like different chapters.
Yes.
And they would, like, explore into just, like, kind of an anthology of horror, like Twilight Zone-esque, and what Twilight Zone even was trying to do in the 80s as well. That being said, I mean, maybe they didn't know what they had with Halloween 1. They had to have, though. I mean, you should just call it Season of the Witch. I don't like that it's called a Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't fit anymore.
If it was just called, like, Killer Masks, or something, and it was a standalone John Carpenter movie, I feel like I would be... That's all it would take. I would say, like, yeah, I'm a fan of it. But when we're going to try to, like, rank the films in the franchise, it's always going to get short end of the stick for me. So
I'm actually opposite of you on this one. I love Halloween 3, and but I see that it doesn't fit in. Obviously, everybody knows that it doesn't fit with the franchise at all. Like, it has zero to do with Michael Myers. But I just keep reminding myself that that's because the rest of the films from here on out were supposed to have zero to do with Michael Myers, because they thought that the fans would be satisfied that he was killed off in part 2, and they had 1 and 2, and now they were going to start a whole nother chapter of this franchise with all different stories. And Michael Myers was just going to be the small role of the first 2 out of however many movies. So I think you're right, though. I think if the movie was released and it wasn't called Halloween 3, it was just called Season of the Witch, I think that you're looking at a huge following now. And not just a cult following like it has now, but, like, I think it would have been huge, because the movie itself is very good. Especially for, like, I love trash bag 80s movies that are horror and sloppy and fucking make no sense. And this is even better than that. So for me, I'm like, I can watch this movie and be like, I love it. But as soon as you tell people this is Halloween 3, that's when they're like, oh, the one without Michael Myers, that shit sucks.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't want to give the sense that, I hate the film or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just...
Shouldn't be there.
In the pantheon of, like, Halloween films, which is synonymous in my brain with Michael Myers, I'm just like, please call it something else.
Right.
Don't put it next to the Michael Myers movies in Blockbuster. It doesn't belong there.
Well, that's how I first saw it. I rented it thinking, like, how does Michael come back after the way part 2 ended? And then Season of the Witch ended, and as a kid, I hated it. And I didn't like Season of the Witch until I was in my 20s because I refused to watch it again until I was in my 20s because I was so mad that he wasn't in it.
Yeah, I feel like we're twins in that regard because it was similarly, it felt like a traumatizing experience for a kid because it was like if you were going to see Ninja Turtles or something and then you showed up to Ninja Turtles and it was like CNN was playing instead. And it was like, what the hell is going on? Where's Michael? Because I just remember being very let down and just I felt like I was tricked or something. And my favorite part of the movie was probably in the bar when they show like a commercial for Halloween, like the Michael Myers Halloween.
Yes.
But I mean, I've watched it recently, and I love John Carpenter movies. I love Alan Howarth, who works with him on like soundtracking and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going to be a late 70s, early 80s John Carpenter fan.
Yeah.
I got no issue with the film. It's all for me just about like its placement within the franchise. So when we do our lists later, it's going to get kind of reamed out.
Yeah.
Unfairly so. But, it is what it is. It's just, it's like turd in the punch bowl kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like it belongs in that list to me.
All right, that's fair. And there's a scene in that movie that cracks me up every time I watch it where Tom Atkins is in the motel room with the girl and he wants to sleep with her. And he's like, do you want me to sleep in the car? And she's like, do you want to sleep in the car? And he's like, that's a stupid question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but any other guy that said that would not be getting into bed with that girl. She'd be like, what the hell did you just say to me? Get the fuck out. But Tom Atkins just is like, walks over and starts kissing her. Like, what?
Yeah. No, he's a man's man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, so with all the complaining about Halloween 3, though, that's where we get Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, which is the tagline of Halloween 4 because everybody was disappointed that he wasn't in it. Now, had the franchise carried on without him and there were 10 movies and he was only in the first 2, Halloween 3 probably wouldn't have the reputation that it has right now. But they listened. The crowd wanted Michael. Michael comes back. And I think Halloween 4 is another fantastic movie. It was a great way to bring Michael back. They had Jamie Lloyd, who ended up being his niece. So more family ties, like he's trying to wipe out his whole family. And I don't know, it's one of those that kind of flies under the radar if you're not like a real deep Halloween fan. But I think Part 4 is just as classic as the follow-up Part 2 was. But that's just me. I really, really love Part 4.
I love Part 4 too. I'm kind of shocked at the amount of time that it had elapsed between 2 and 4 because I don't know if Halloween 3 had just really soured people on like, oh, I guess Michael is dead and we can't like resurrect him or something. But, killers have come back from lesser shit. And, it's kind of crazy to me. Halloween 2 comes out in 81 and 4 takes another 7 years, comes out in 88.
Yep.
I thought the incorporation of a niece was great. I love the soundtrack for the film. I love, if anyone is out there listening to this, even if you don't watch the whole movie, the beginning, maybe like 5 minutes or so, they're just using sort of like establishing shots. And it's got some of the best music I've heard in like any of the Halloweens. And it's got a real like aura or feel to it. But then the action starts and then there's things that I like about it and then there's things that, I was like, if I was director, maybe we would have did this. But, no, I thought that they did a good job as far as like, okay, Jamie Lee ain't coming back, but we have this photograph of her.
Right.
So what can we do with it? Maybe she had a daughter, lives in a foster family. Rachel was, a great character. I thought it had good... I mean, Donald Pleasance obviously comes back and really, again, like leans into that character and carries the franchise for the next few films.
Yes. Good
kills. I had heard or I read some feature that was done on it where, they thought there wasn't enough gore. So then they went back and reshot some things that sort of like redneck.
Yeah.
truck scene where he like rips out that dude's throat.
Yep.
Also the ambulance in the beginning where it turns into like bloodbath and he puts his thumb through dude's head. So I feel like, again, that was kind of reactive to all else that had happened in the 80s because, you know, if all they had under their belts at that point are Halloween 1 and 2, that's pretty tame.
Yeah. So
I could totally see, you know, the film company or test audience saying, like, yeah, we liked it, but he's not, like, enough of a killer.
Yeah,
Maybe add more blood and gore and everything.
Well, they say that Halloween was the blueprint, and then Friday the 13th took it and made it better, and then the slashers had that blueprint to go on from there on out, and I think the Halloween sequels fall underneath the new blueprint, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And great twist on it, too, because... And maybe that's the... I don't know that this is really going to come up anymore, but, like, you know, Halloween 2, the twist was, well, Jamie Lee's his sister.
Yeah.
And then the twist at the end of this one is that, you know, Michael has passed something on to his niece, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being shocked. I don't know how old I was when I saw that, probably 7 or 8. And, yeah, when Jamie's standing at the top of the stairs and Loomis starts flipping out at the end.
Yes.
I was just like, holy shit, I gotta see Halloween 5.
Yeah.
Because if this is how they're gonna sort of like do a send-off, Halloween 5 must be amazing.
And much like Halloween 1 and 2, they are, you know, kind of one big movie. And you get the Revenge of Michael Myers in Part 5, which falls short of the greatness of Part 4. It's not as fantastic as 2 or 4, but you still watch it, and like you can find things that are fun about it, and you're still going to enjoy it. And I do like that it's a continuation of Part 4, so it's not just all right, we're just going to move on from this and leave her standing here, and then whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that you were very kind when you just said that Halloween 5 was, I quote, not as fantastic as 4. I want to like 5 so much.
Yeah.
And I just don't really. And I can articulate why, I think. But are we going to 5 now?
Yeah.
Okay, where to begin? It's just kind of a weird movie. It, you know those cops in it? There's these 2 bumbling idiot cops.
Yes.
Who, when they show up, I don't know what the hell the director was thinking, but they start playing like this goofball music.
Yes.
Like, maybe that was reactive to Police Academy or something. And these guys are just like idiots. And it's inexplicable, these scenes that they're in, and they end up getting murdered, which, great, thank God. But I don't know, man. It's a weird movie. The early going in it, I thought that they kind of let everyone down with what they do with Jamie's character, because in the beginning, you know, at the end of 4, she's basically a replica of Michael when he was a little killer.
Yes, clown
costume
and all, yeah.
And then you turn on 5, and you find out that she has gone mute, and she's suffering from, you know, emotional, mental issues. And it was as though they just sort of like, they gave her this sort of power and then they snipped it away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie feels like, okay, why did you do that? It just feels like you're rebooting yourself. And the rest of it is just sort of like, Michael, again, he gets resurrected by the mountain man or whatever the hell guy that lives near the water. It just feels aimless to me.
Yeah. No, I could totally see that. I think kind of like you said, it's a movie that I want to like. So, like, I will watch it when I'm watching, like, through the franchise. It's not one of the ones that I dread watching. We'll get to those. But, like,
yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know. I just always liked the idea that it didn't just end with Jamie Lloyd at the top of the stairs. Like, you got a continuation of her story, and it made me feel like they were trying to throw it back to how well Halloween 1 and 2 worked, but obviously it fell short of, you know, Halloween 1 and 2.
Well, whereas we were saying 2 had, you know, incredible continuity with 1.
Yeah.
You know, 3 years removed from each other, as far as when they were, like, filmed and released and everything.
Right.
5 feels like it just detonated 4, because obviously, I mean, I don't want Jamie to become like Jamie Myers and like
Right.
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Jamie or something. But to just sort of like, I don't know, I want to use a word like castrate or neuter her, because like she had power and then they stripped it all from her.
Yeah.
And then they gave it all back to Michael. And then he goes and kills Rachel within like the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And again, I felt like that was just a slap in Forrest's face.
Because Jamie Lloyd was like mentally connected to Michael. Like she would feel, and I think even see some of the things that he was thinking or doing.
Yeah, and it was kind of, I mean, I don't know if, there's a there, but it just felt like, writers were trying to get a little too, I don't know, cute with, oh, what if she can do this or whatever, and it reminded me of 7, or Friday the 13th Part 7, where that one girl's got telekinetic powers.
Yes, and I was gonna bring that up too.
Yeah, it's like, what if Jason goes up against Carrie from Stephen King movie,
right?
And it's like, well, yeah, but why?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's, but when you think of some of the films that we're going to talk about that we didn't get to yet, you can't even like, you kind of give 5 a little break.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess with 6 in mind too, because if they are going to, so if 4, if you look at it, it's like, okay, maybe Jamie has some kind of supernatural connection to Michael, or maybe it's got like a curse to do with it, and then maybe she's still connected to him in 5, but she's rendered powerless essentially.
Yeah.
Other than to basically tell Loomis, like, where is he, so we can anticipate him and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Who always does a fantastic job, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he shows up for work every day, and then some. Like, I'm not. We're being serious about Loomis. I mean,
for sure.
He was like a consummate actor in the whole franchise and professional. And when Jamie Lee Curtis was not in the films, he really, carried all of them.
Yeah.
So, it's a boon to the franchise that they even got him, and then that he stuck around.
Yeah.
Because 4, 5, 6, he was a phenomenon.
Which I actually heard that he wasn't even thrilled with like being a part of the first one, so that he ended up in so many of them really speaks volumes for how good the first one turned out. Yeah,
I think that might be a sort of staple of some horror films, because there was also in Friday the 13th Part 1, Jason's mother, when she read the script or something, she called it a piece of shit.
Yes. Yep.
And, then it probably padded her bank account.
Yes.
And I don't doubt that Halloween was any different for Donald Pleasance. So, but again, I mean, like, he's just sort of synonymous with the franchise. I mean, I remember when there was newer ones coming out, my biggest concern was always like, well, do I even want to watch this? Because Donald Pleasance passed away. So, like, if it doesn't have Loomis, I feel like that's an enormous gaping hole.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like we were saying, 4, 5, 6, he was dynamite.
Yeah.
Those movies wouldn't crack my top 5, I don't think, if he wasn't in them.
Yeah, I know, I totally agree. And since we're already, mentioning Part 6, we see Paul Rudd come in Part 6, and a lot of people, like, were really confused by Part 6 and, what was actually going on. But I remember thinking, so this is called The Curse of Michael Myers. And I remember when I first saw it, like the first few times I saw it, I was probably in the boat of like, it's better than Part 5. You know what I mean? So like to me, I was already more invested, right then and there. But it was like the beginning throws you off. It's not like the other Halloween movies. It's the cult and the guy who's setting all of this up and the baby and like all of these things. And it does like kind of throw you through a loop. You kind of hear it talked about in the same vein as like a Halloween 3 where they're like, they just made this and it's fucking bullshit and it doesn't make sense, but they're still like happy to have Michael in it. But there is a lot of twists and turns that are not like anything else in the series. So it's a movie I can have fun watching now, but I do think that for a while I was questioning it as like, what am I actually watching?
Yeah, I think I was in the same boat. First time I saw it, I didn't even know that it had come out in theaters. I think it was already on like pay-per-view or something. I was like, I don't remember this getting a theatrical release. I remember the first time I saw it, feeling as though Michael had never been so scary to me. He felt a lot more powerful in that movie, which that had some kind of an effect on me as a viewer. And like, I must have been like 9 or 10 when I saw it, because I think it came out in 95 or 96. And the curse thing I'll get to, but the kills in that one are really brutal.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not like your grandpa's Michael Myers anymore.
But yet was still played like Michael Myers, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't question...
I mean, he's still, I think, who was it? Maybe, I was going to say George Wilbur. That's who it was.
That's who it was.
Yeah. No, yeah, all the mannerisms, body language, movement.
Yes.
I think 6 might be... It's definitely like one of my favorite portrayals of him. I liked the mask that he wore in it. But yeah, the kills were all brutal. Snapping necks, impaling people on spikes. The scene in the theatrical cut where Paul Rudd is trying to break Kira, or whatever her name is, the character's name, out of the cell.
Yeah.
And then Michael wakes up and comes out of his cell. That chase scene where they're in underground tunnels or some shit.
Yeah.
And he smashes that dude's face against it to knock down like a bar door. The machete sequence where I don't know what the fuck those doctors were doing, but I'm glad he killed them because it seemed like they were just experimenting on babies or something.
It did. I know.
But yeah, that was all brutal. Yeah, he felt like a Hulk kind of character in that movie where, and like...
He was under somebody else's control, though. You know, so it was like one of those things where he was still portrayed and played like Michael, which is important to a viewer who's such a fan, and but at the same time you realize that he had like this mind control thing going on, hence the curse of Michael Myers with this cult thing. So like yeah, it was a little bit more brutal, and it wasn't your same Michael from 1978, but it wasn't so far removed from it that you were like, what the fuck is this guy?
Right. No, I mean, he always felt indestructible, but I don't think as much so until 6 for me. But carrying on with what we were saying about Jamie, and they did have this, parts 4, 5, 6 arc to them. So, 4 is like, she's at least got the capability of, falling subject to this curse or being murderous, just like her uncle was.
Yep.
5, they abandoned that. We didn't talk about the end of 5 for the Man in Black sort of thread.
Right.
But, he busts Michael out. Jamie's sort of just whimpering at the end of 5. And then they pick up some years later where now she's pregnant with Michael's kid. So he could pass the curse on to her kid?
Right.
And I was just kind of like, I don't like this. Even as a 10-year-old. I was like, this is stupid. And then he kills Jamie within the first, 10 minutes or so. Right. That was also brutal, because he's sort of holding his, your viewers can't see, but I'm holding my hands up. Because she's on like that, I'm not a farmer. I don't know what kind of farming tool that was. Something to do with wheat, perhaps, but he holds his hands up like he's going to embrace her. Yeah. And then he just slams her down into it, and then he turns the machine on. Right. So I think that also fed into, like, the brutality. I kind of feel like 6 should be called the brutality of Michael Myers. Because the theatrical cut is very brutal. I don't think it's until you get to the Rob Zombie abominations that there's kills that are quite like that again. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm of several minds about 6. I totally understand why a lot of people don't like it.
Yeah, oh yeah, me too.
I feel like it should be given a chance, though.
I have, like I said, I have fun with it now, but I think for a little while there, I was kind of like, I don't know about this movie, but like you said, once you keep watching it, you're like, oh man, these kill scenes are pretty cool, and honestly, Paul Rudd does a great job.
Yeah. Him and Loomis, they end up becoming like a dynamic duo. Yeah. In a lot of the movie. The, producer's cut, we should say a little bit about, or I could say a little bit about it. It was like a mythical thing for me, or like a long fabled. You know, I knew a producer's cut existed, but I didn't see it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And when you do watch it, it kind of reads to me as like a Lifetime movie. It's extremely slow.
Okay.
Going. And you get way more into Paul Rudd's character, you know, playing a adult Tommy Doyle.
Yeah.
He's basically devoted his life to learning about, like, why Michael is the way that he is. And the way that they explain it has to do with, like, a Celtic runes.
Yes.
Of, like, the thorn symbol.
Yeah.
And they just go way more into depth with it. And at the expense of the depth that they go into the story, they subtract, like, 10 kills easily. They're kind of, like, completely different movies.
Gotcha.
So I couldn't even really fathom, like, a combined version.
Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind that they were even going to release the producer's cut, because that would have really put people to sleep.
And that just came out recently on, like, a Blu-ray special edition collector's or something like that, like this year, I think, right?
Yeah, and there were copies that were, like, really grainy, like VHS rips that were floating around back in the day.
Yeah.
Where I think the way that those had looked, there was, like, somebody had the theatrical cut, and then they spliced in, like, very, very lower quality VHS rips of the scenes that featured in the producer's cut.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, it's if anyone is like that, you know, great of a fan, I mean, I would totally watch producer's cut if you haven't, because it just reads like you're getting a little more into that world. I mean, if you buy into, like, 4, 5, and 6, and you subscribe to, okay, I want to see, like, what the writers were trying to do with this.
Yeah.
6 gets much more into depth with what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And it also kind of reads to me as, not to just be, like, name-dropping Jason all over the place, but, you know, Jason Goes to Hell was trying to, like, switch things up a little bit. Maybe that's what they were trying to do with Curse on some level. Because they were very, I mean, I remember similarly watching Jason Goes to Hell and being really let down because Jason's only in the first 5 minutes or so.
Yes.
Until shit pops off at the end. And I could see people watching 6 and like, why are you giving me all this Curse bullshit? Why can't he just, like, be going out to kill like he used to?
Yeah.
But the reason he can't is because they made him kill Jamie within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that really should have been the end of the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except that she had a baby. But again, like, why would you impregnate someone? I don't know. Why would you impregnate your niece, period?
Yeah, right. Right. And you know, it's funny, too, because part 6 is The Curse of Michael Myers, where it's more supernatural, and part 6 of the Friday the 13th was Jason Lives, where he gets brought back from the dead. So I think it was just a thing of, like, people love these guys, how do we keep them going? Because a normal man can't keep going, so now we have to make them into more than a normal man. Like, they were already stronger and bigger and, like, scarier than a normal human and harder to stop, but there comes a point where you have to stop them unless you introduce that supernatural element.
Yeah. But, I mean, they took it too far because they want to start having him bestow the curse onto, like, a newborn or something.
Yes.
That's sort of getting into more satanic or, like, you know, let's pass the bad seed to the Antichrist kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, the more that we're talking about it, I could really see and empathize with people who are like, I don't like Halloween 6.
Yeah, right.
But I stand by, you know, I've always had a fondness for it because of the brutality. Plus, I feel like I just love the 90s feel to it. It feels like a good, like, gritty 90s movie in a way that H2O feels like a very sanitized 90s horror film.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, good segue there, because I was going to say H2O. Now, to me, that's one of the better sequels of the Halloween series. I have fun with it because it reminds me of, like, an urban legend, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's very much in that vein because it came out in 98, right in the midst of that like repopularization of the slasher genre because of Scream. So then you see Halloween H2O, you see Jamie Lee Curtis come back. Of course, they had to get one of the teen heartthrobs of the time, Josh Hartnett, to be in the movie because that's what they did, right? All those other slashers had like Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., Ryan Felipe, Matthew Lillard, Nev Campbell. Like, you were going to get somebody in that vein to be in Halloween H2O, and you did, plus LL Cool J. And, but it's fun, and like, there's some corniness to it, and there's some campiness where you're like, all right, that was a little ridiculous, but I'm still having a good time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just one of those movies that you just grab some popcorn and you laugh and you have fun and you're like, this is just fun. You know, it's just fun to see him back after Jamie Lee Curtis, and they did do a good job. And the story was good, and he came after, you know, her and her son on his 17th birthday, just like he went after her on her 17th birthday, and they just really tied it together nicely, and it made sense, and there was no curse, and there was no weird shit going on, and no pregnant nieces. It was just Michael Myers. I mean, the mask with the hair in some of the scenes like was a little ridiculous.
I fucking hated the mask.
He'd be standing in an open doorway, and he kind of looked like Pennywise does now. But like, you know.
Yeah, he just looked like a goofball. He looked terrible. He did. It was a bad mask.
But again, you love cheesy bullshit horror movies. You're like, fuck it, this is fun.
Yeah. Well, before we get too deep into it, there was another heartthrob by the name of Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes.
Who was unfortunately ice skated through the face within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And
great intro.
Yeah, because he'd been suspended recently for
5
being
times.
a little too crazy with the stick.
That's right.
Remember the hockey stick at the beginning?
And he slams it on the ground.
Yeah, and then they steal all the beer, and then they get murdered.
Yeah.
But
moral of the story: don't steal your neighbor's beer.
Right. Go and like sincerely help that nurse because her house was ransacked, and you know, then you steal her beer. It's like, what the fuck?
Yes.
But no, man, I agree. And 7 washes away the sins of the last 4 that we just talked about.
Yeah.
It's a real palate cleanser. It does again. I also appreciate like the screams. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like H2O didn't have to be so that.
Yeah.
Because it really just, it reads like, okay, I could really tell that all these things were made at the same time, or like around the same time.
Yeah.
Because they all just start, I don't know, they look like they're just feeding off of each other. But I'm glad that it was made. I agree with all that you said about, they're sort of honoring 1 and 2, returning Jamie Lee back into the fold. The kills are good. The suspense is good. It's got some sort of like hokey shit in it, but I don't feel like it goes over the top. It just kind of feels to me like a good sort of romp of a horror movie. Like you were saying, something I wouldn't mind watching whenever, and just like, grab some candy and some popcorn, all that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I do fucking seriously hate his mask.
Yes, me too. But it makes me laugh, kind of like when he's standing in doorways and you just see that crazy ass hair.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like he just woke up or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like
but,
Michael was sleeping for 20 years.
Yeah, I kind of do wish that they had said more about like where the fuck was he for the past 20 years.
Yeah, they just kind of let it go.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it did also feed into I don't know what to call her at this point, Laurie/Jamie Lee's sort of arc.
Mm-hmm.
Or like what they were doing for her in that film, which was like, she had faced alcoholism and
changed her name,
substance abuse, and she didn't really know what was real.
Yeah.
So that actually helped a lot, because then when you see his silhouette with like crazy hair coming at you, it's like, is that really him, or does she need a drink, or what's going on? But no, yeah, I think that if they had done a better job with the mask, or just like the general look of him, that would probably be in among my top picks.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk about it, actually, I might have to change my list right now.
Well, I gotta say too, whoever played Michael, I don't remember the actor's name, but he seemed to be a little bit smaller than some of the other guys that played Michael. But he did play Michael the way that he was meant to be played, and it kind of made you forget. And, there were scenes in there, like I said, where you were like, all right, a little bit ridiculous, but I'm having a blast, so I'm going to let it go. And it's just one of those 90s slashers that you're just like, this is fun, man. We're getting a classic character in the 90s, and, like, they didn't change him to the point where you're like, oh, man, come on, like, fuck this. Like, okay, they had a shitty mask, but Michael was still Michael.
Well, yeah, I think they were just trying to make him more palatable to modern audiences in the later 90s.
Yeah.
Which is, like, I don't know, kind of shocking to me, because there's not that wide of a gap between when H2O came out and Curse. There's only like 3 years between them.
Yeah, there's not many.
But
H2O had a bigger release, though. Like, that was a big deal.
It did. I mean, it was red carpet for Jamie Lee coming back.
Right. They
Paul
really
Rudd
pushed
wasn't
it.
that big of a draw.
Not yet.
He had only, I don't even know if Clueless was out yet. But
he might have had some, oh no, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about it other than it's a fun 90s slasher, and it's what you would expect from your 90s slashers.
Yeah. Box office for H2O, they took home $75 million. For Curse, $15 million.
Yeah, that lets you know how how big of a gap there was there. But then they kind of, I'm going to let you take the reins on Resurrection, because, they went from this fantastic sequel to Resurrection.
Yeah. I don't want to get my blood pressure up here, but here we go. So, Halloween Resurrection is one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I found it personally insulting that it was released on July 12th, which is the day after my birthday.
And 3 days before mine.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a curse here. Me and you trying to go out and see a film in 2002 around our birthdays. Worst fucking piece of shit horror movie I've ever seen in my life, or maybe any movie. So, we were talking earlier about the franchise seems to do these things where, you got your momentum. Where are you going to take it? Because I would argue, I understand everything you're saying about, maybe John Carpenter wanted to do more of an anthologized bunch of shit for 3, and just slams the door in 2's face.
Yeah.
Halloween 4 ends on, like, a big cinematic moment where this little girl is now cursed just like Michael was, and she just killed her stepmom, or foster mom, and it's like, holy shit. And then you start watching 5, and it's like, nope, she's mute now, and never mind. 6, they just kill Jamie off the bat, first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
So now H2O had a great moment at the end of it, and you wonder, like, how we're going to come back from this.
Right.
I mean, I'll say the spoiler, I guess.
Yeah.
She cuts his head off, which is like that's what you scream at the TV. Like, why doesn't somebody just cut his head off?
Right.
That would kill him. That would
give
stop
it to you.
Everything.
Yeah.
So then they give the audience what they, seem to clamor for a lot. With like, oh, well, if you don't want to get chased through the woods or murdered or whatever, just like make sure the motherfucker's dead. So she chops his head off. And then I remember thinking, like, fuck, man, that's the end of all of this. But what a way to go. So then 4 years go by, and I remember reading all the message boards when the internet was brand new and being like, oh, I guess that was an ambulance worker or something.
Yeah.
That wasn't really Michael. They just switched the mask. And then that was just like, it was in the rumor mill for Halloween movies. And then I went to the theater, and I was like, okay, so they read the rumor mills, and they put that in the movie, because you find out within the opening of Resurrection is like, it wasn't Michael, he put his mask on, this, EMT guy.
Right.
And he had crushed his voice box, or whatever the scientific word for throat is.
his
one
larynx.
Girl is like, well, why didn't he... Yeah, I knew it was something that ended in Y and X, but, or just an X. I was going to say thorax. Maybe it was a bug. But, no, yeah, the elderly nurse is telling the younger nurse, oh, he couldn't say anything, like, don't chop my head off, I'm not Michael, because his larynx had been crushed.
Mm-hmm.
So we find Laurie, she's in like a cuckoo house.
Yes.
And there's a serial killer fan who's just walking around spewing out facts about serial killers. And Laurie sort of sets a trap for Michael, who shows up, and again, he's like, where have you been?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get here?
Right.
So she sort of sets a trap for him, but then she has a flashback to when she chopped that poor man's head off. And she's like, oh, I gotta be sure to chop the right head off this time. And she goes to reach for the mask. And then there's sort of like a turn of events where he kills her.
Yeah.
Stabs her, she kisses him and says, see you in hell. Then he drops her to the ground. I also hate his mask in 8 more than I do in H2O.
Yes, me too.
Because they put like eyebrows on him.
Yeah.
It seemed to change. Like a painting.
Could we say
can
too?
Actually, like make faces.
Right, but could we just like point out too that the ending of H2O was also really good too, because it could have just ended with them carting him away in an ambulance like other movies have, and they did the right thing with the crowd going, really? They're gonna do this again? And she's like, no, fuck it. Hijacks the ambulance, and she's like, I'm finishing this thing. And then when Resurrection comes and everything that you just explained happens, you're kind of like, all right. Like, this movie better, like, really kick some ass now, and then it just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I think that what we might be finding here from, like, using 1 and 4 and 7 as sort of exemplary.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 5, too, because 5 had, like, a really climactic what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
Where the man in black, shoots up the jail and Michael's gone. He escapes.
Yeah.
When you do that kind of shit at the ends of your movies, and you know that a sequel's coming, you're kind of really fucking over the next person who's going to be tasked with writing it.
Yeah.
Because you don't leave them anywhere to go, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because you kind of blew your load at the end of your movie.
Right.
And it's like, I could give a fuck what happens next because I'm not the person writing it.
Right.
So 7, yeah, it was very amped up at the end. You know he's going to come back to life. He was in the body bag. She's driving the ambulance or the van or whatever, and you see the body bag start moving around. Rolls down the hill. She chops his head off. After they have this kind of like, goodbye sort of interaction with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're thinking that as a writer, like, where the hell do I take it from there? Yeah, I think the EMT thing, it's an easy fix.
Yeah.
But they did not need to kill her.
Right. Right.
At the beginning of 8. Because she's dead within the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then it's kind of like, okay, that feels as climactic as what just happened at the end of 7.
Yeah.
Are you going to bring her back?
Right.
For what purpose did you just kill her?
Right.
And then you keep watching and you find out that the fucking purpose for which Jamie Lee, who's been in this franchise for like 2 decades at that point, 2+ decades, they killed her so that they could go like reality TV, headcam, let's walk around Michael Myers' haunted house on reality television on Halloween. Seriously?
Right.
That was the stupidest. It just felt like the biggest betrayal. Mm-hmm. What a pile of dog shit.
Yeah, and then from there it just ensues of like, oh, are we really watching Michael Myers, or is this all a bogus plot to get us to watch reality TV? And like, it was just, I don't know, I just don't enjoy that. That's one of the few that I can't find anything about that I enjoyed, other than the fact that they made another Halloween movie. After that, it was like, okay, well, I could have done with you not making another Halloween movie if this was going to be the one.
Yeah. I watched it the other day, and I picked a time when I had bronchitis to watch it, so that I was too weak to shut it off. I watched it in 2, bouts or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. I watched like the first 50 minutes, then I watched the rest of it after a nap.
You watched Busta Rhymes try and fight Michael Myers.
Yeah, and doing his karate shit or whatever the fuck he was doing towards the end.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you want to talk about... We've been talking about the sort of reactivity of the movies a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So Halloween 78 kicks off the formula. Halloween 2 is then sort of beholden to the formula that it helped get off the ground. 4 and 5 want to be more gory than they probably would have been otherwise because the 1980s happened.
Yes.
And, slashers are everywhere.
Yep.
Curse, I don't know what they were doing. I think they're just trying to get kind of up their own asses with really convoluted storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
H2O, palette cleanser. Again, though, it's very like aesthetically similar to those other 96, 97, 98 horror movies we were talking about.
Yep.
Resurrection just seems like it was responding to like a cultural sort of phenomenon of like, what if we were on TV all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what if?
Yeah.
Maybe leave it out of the goddamn Halloween franchise because it didn't. The movies were already fine.
Well,
you don't need to do like the handy cam bullshit.
Well, yeah, they were trying to compete with shows like MTV did that Fear show where they would strap the hard cams to people's chests and send them out in like haunted locations, and like you would watch them to see if they would freak out or if they would win the money at the end. And then like there were shows like Paranormal Activity, which was basically like houses filled with cameras and you would catch like spiritual type stuff, and like they were really trying to capitalize on all of that. It's like reality TV is the biggest thing right now. What if Michael Myers was on a reality TV show but people didn't believe it and watched people get killed for real? And there's movies that have come out later in more recent years that did a more reality-based thing better than that. The first one that comes to mind is Hellfest. Like, what if you went to a haunted house and people were getting killed and you thought it was part of the show? That killer could go all night long just killing people and nobody would know. That's scary. These fucking stupid-ass kids and Busta Rhymes in this fucking house, it just didn't do it for me. It's like it was missing something. I could see the concept because it was a popular thing. And when did that come out? Like 2002 or something? I don't even, 2002. So, like, I could see the concept being there of, like, this is what's in right now, so how could we take one of these old school killers and plant them in a situation like this and get a new movie out of it? But I just think they didn't go about it the right way at all. Like you said, the mask was absolutely ridiculous, and Busta Rhymes doing his stupid karate shit, and Jamie Lee getting killed. It's just, there was just too many things that made you go, I don't want to see this anymore.
Well, yeah, like you were saying more recently, what you were saying about, the kind of film device or plot device of, okay, we'll have cameras set up everywhere. If you're doing it with something like a haunted house, I'm very appreciative of that.
Mm-hmm.
Hell House LLC.
Oh, love those.
I love, like found footage kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. And maybe they were trying to do Blair Witch too, but that,
right.
Like, Blair Witch is found footage, whereas Resurrection was meant to be in real time. That's not, like, what makes Michael Myers scary, though.
Right.
So it just felt like they had imprinted this stupid fad onto a guy who had already been slashing them up in 7 movies by that point.
Right.
So, like, why do you need to go there?
Yeah.
You might as well, like, put him on a boat in Manhattan, like Jason.
Yeah, I know. But that's kind of where we drift into Halloween 2018, which was part 9, because you're completely ignoring that Resurrection ever happened, which is fantastic, and that's fine with me. But that movie I did enjoy. I didn't think it was great. I thought that movie was good because it was bringing the franchise back around, and Michael wasn't too out of control. Like, he was a little bit different, but he was still kind of played the way that Michael should be played. But I thought that was a fun way to revamp the franchise. And yes, I did skip over Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2. We're not talking about those because those were dumpster fires. And I can't believe people like those. I really can't believe it. Like, that blows my mind. Like, those are just as bad as Resurrection. Like, he changed the whole story. If you were going to do that, put a different mask on him and make your own new slasher. But it is not a Halloween movie. To me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, call him Montgomery Myers or something. He's not Michael.
Not my Michael.
No, yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody about this recently, and she was more open to the zombie ones, and I was like, I fucking loathe them.
Me too.
Because, well, we'll get to 2018 in a second. going back to Loomis's dialogues or monologues in 78, he knew that Michael was evil by nature.
Yeah.
Like, he was born a bad seed. It wasn't like he had shitty parents or bad upbringing. He was just born evil.
Yes.
And when you're talking about evil, it's typically either nature or nurture. It's not, there is no sort of like third alternative. So, someone who's naturally evil, that's scary.
Yeah.
And it works well for the Halloween franchise.
Mm-hmm.
What Zombie tried to do, or what Zombie did, was basically say, well, what if it was a matter of nurture?
Right.
What if we show him getting bullied? What if we show him with sort of cliched sort of scenes of like a quote-unquote broken home?
Yeah.
And just tell a completely different story about a completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like a truly flipped script. And then in the second one, it felt like they tried to get a little more, like, I don't know, even proto-spiritual with it, of like, what's this dude's deal? And like, what's with the horse?
Yeah, right.
You know? And it was just like, is this somebody's art project? This is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't like him, but I would still watch those once in a really, really blue moon. I'm not just gonna write them off like completely.
I wouldn't say that I'd go out of my way to watch those. And like the first, I own one of them because I didn't see it, and it came out on DVD, and I liked Rob Zombie and I liked Halloween, so I was like, oh shit, this is on sale, and I just bought it. And then when I like popped it in after I got done watching it, I was like, motherfucker. I mean, I guess it's okay to like have in your collection. I mean, Resurrection's in my collection, but it's not something that I'm going to pop in, but it's just because I like the franchise. So, you know, every once in a while you're walking through Walmart and that $5 bin, you see a Michael Myers movie and you're like, I'm going to buy that.
Yeah, I mean, if I invited you over, I would like to think that you would come and watch it. But we have so many other movies we can watch instead of Rob Zombie's Sex to Shit.
Yeah, right. So let's talk 2018.
Okay, so, well, real quick, with the Rob Zombie ones, those came out, first one came out in 2007. I just want to get a sense of, and then the other one came out in 2009. So Resurrection's 02.
Yeah.
And it sours the franchise like 3 did.
Yeah, and then Rob Zombie continues to sour the franchise.
Well, they did, how did those do in the box office, actually?
Actually, I'm not going to lie, I don't think they did bad.
I don't think they did either. But again, so I mean, like, Resurrection just fucks it up so bad.
Yeah.
That then you need a reboot, so they say, well, let's give it to Rob.
Yeah.
Zombie.
Yeah. Not me.
Right. The first one, box office, 80 million?
Yeah, so that's more than H2O did.
It was more than H2O, but it was also, like, a good decade later.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Then 2009, only box office 40 million. So, like, you get a real good sense then of how turned off everyone was, I think, by those two.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I mean, there's no real saving grace with those films. And
that's a big dip from 80 to 40.
It was. And they both had about the same budget, and they were only released 2 years apart. So after that, they go through a dry spell of Halloween 2018?
Yes.
So it was 9 years between those two.
Yeah, yeah. And technically, that's the next one in the actual franchise because the zombie ones were reboots of the original 1 and 2. So I don't consider, like, obviously they're quote-unquote part of the Halloween franchise, but they're remakes, like, whereas 2018 is a new movie in the franchise. And I did like that they brought it back around. I liked it better than the zombie ones. I liked it better than some of the, first 6 of them. You know what I mean? It's just, it was a little more modern. Michael was a little more modern, but they did a great job of explaining his release, how he got out, how, everything started coming back around. And, of course, we get Jamie Lee Curtis back again, which is fantastic. And she does an excellent job in this movie. And we see how her entire family has been affected by Michael Myers, which I thought was just really cool. And I did enjoy this movie.
Mm-hmm. I did, too. And because I have the box office stuff up here, I will tell you, because it's pretty impressive. Halloween 2018 box office, $255 million.
Oh my god. What a jump.
So that really blew a lot of the other ones they've seen out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Broke a record. It was the highest grossing slasher film in unadjusted dollars.
Wow.
Broke Scream's record from 96.
Really? Wow. That's fantastic. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about this one. It's one of the newer ones, so I don't want to give too many spoilers like we did with the older ones. But it's worth seeing, and it is a movie that, you know, rewrites some of the previous movies, which is fine. You know, it's not something that you are watching like disgusted that they're like skipping over this, that, or the other. Like, obviously we're totally ignoring that Resurrection even happened when 2018 comes out, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of the 2018 one.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it again recently after Kills came out, and I thought they did a great job with it. Again, you bring Jamie Lee back. We talked about palette cleanser, wiping the slate clean with H2O. They kind of just did that all over again and get, Halloween 2 out of the canon, which we could talk about being upset about. But, they're not really leaving themselves many more options moving forward because, trying to explain to someone the timeline of Halloween movies who's never seen them.
Yes.
It's getting difficult.
Yes.
Well, because... To have to, take a date night out and be like, have you ever seen the Halloweens? Okay, good. Because this one pretends that the last 9 didn't happen.
Right, exactly.
So.
Exactly. And like H2O kind of did that too. H2O basically went from part 2 to H2O. Like it totally ignored 4, 5, and 6. And obviously it ignored 3 because it had nothing to do with anything. But like H2O went 1, 2, H2O. And 2018 goes 1, 2018. You know what I mean? But it doesn't make a big deal out of telling you that. So like when you're watching it, you can almost imagine that 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, and even H2O did happen because Jamie Lee Curtis is so fried over, the situation in itself that you would imagine that she did deal with this more than once, and that's why she's so fucking prepared. But obviously it doesn't include H2O because she has a daughter, not a son, but like, just, I thought it was a cool concept.
Well, they do say in the, it's in like the prologue or it's in like one of the opening scenes of 2018, they show her granddaughter, Allison, right?
Yeah.
She's walking to school with her friends and they're talking about like the story of her traumatized grandmother. Mm-hmm. And the boy is like, didn't her brother like carve some people up with a butcher knife? And she was like, no, that was just a rumor that stupid people made up or something.
Yeah.
And so they get it out of the way early, and it just makes it seem like she's, she didn't go through everything that she went through if it was just like the one night.
Right.
I'm not demeaning or like lessening the impact of that, but she would have just been, preoccupied with that trauma for the past 40 years, and then she's got this plan to essentially like execute Michael the first chance that she gets.
Right. But
no, I think they did a great job with it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was a very simple story for them to tell.
Yep.
They kept it simple. It's got good kills.
Yes, it does.
It's got a great return to form for John Carpenter as far as soundtrack goes. I love the new things that they added to it.
Yep.
I think Halloween 2018 might be my favorite Halloween soundtrack. I love the scene where Allison is fleeing from Michael. I don't remember. I think it might be called like Allison Flees. But no, I would really recommend the 2018 soundtrack for anyone who just wants to get some, spooky Halloween vibes going, whether you like the movies or not.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you just said, but since it's newer, I don't know what kind of listeners we're getting that maybe haven't seen it, so I won't give too much away, but I liked the way it ended, and it really made me excited to see Halloween Kills, which I did watch on opening night, and was then disappointed.
Yeah.
So, Halloween Kills really bothered me that Michael wasn't Michael. Like, I don't want to see Michael being sped up and fast and more aggressive and more violent and overkilling people and, like, dodging shit and, like, doing, like, fucking, I'm gonna fucking grab this gun and twist it out of your arm and then, like, come at you. Like, Michael doesn't do that shit. And people are like, yeah, it's more modern because he's mad. Michael Myers was scary because he was just an emotionless killing machine. Like, I don't want Michael to charge head first into battle and kill 10 people at the same time. I want them to walk into the house where he was supposedly dead and go, holy shit, nobody's in here. And then you wonder where the fuck he is. I don't want him to come out and grab a weapon and then just, like, charge, you know? Yeah. Like, movies, I do love movies like that, like Hatchet. I love the Hatchet series, and Victor Crowley is very much played in that manner, but he always was. So I fell in love with those movies the way that they were. Halloween Kills didn't do it for me. Do I think it was the worst Halloween movie I've ever seen? No. But it just really blew my mind because 2018, I liked it so much. And then Kills came out, and I was like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Which is the theme that we keep running into here.
It is.
The follow-up movie tends to take the dive.
Well, yeah, and I think that, going back to your point about him being pretty agile, I don't know that I'd really put that together, but it's totally true. And, again, with not giving spoilers away too much, I am wondering if they did a lot of that, of him basically like, oh, you thought you got me, but I'm actually going to not get shot, or I'm not going to get stabbed, or I'm not going to get, like, what anyone else would consider, like, mortally wounded.
Right.
Because of the end of the film.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to set it up for, like, oh, well, all we need to do is be able to, like, get a shot in at him.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll be all right.
Right.
But you end up finding out that that's not necessarily true.
Exactly. Right.
But yeah, the kills were, again, going back to, like, what you were saying about H2O or what we were saying about H2O a little while ago. H2O felt like a crowd pleaser in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And it still feels like, you know, like we were saying, I wouldn't mind switching on H2O right now. Having some popcorn and watching it.
Yep.
Kills feels that way to me, but Halloween 2018 also did. Kills felt kind of like a roller coaster ride of, like, do we need all this excitement?
Right. Right.
Because there was just, like, a lot of stuff in it as far as really over-the-top kills. They had that stupid vigilante drawn-out thing in the middle.
So
they had the mental patient thing happen.
Not needed. That was just gore for the sake of gore.
Yeah, a lot of it was.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like shock value kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, the kills, there was some, like, Game of Thrones type shit going on there. So, yeah, if people have seen it, they'll know what I'm talking about. But I do have to say, so I've had some time away from work recently, and I had time to watch Kills on Peacock streaming.
Yeah.
Like 5 or 6 times.
Yes.
Once I realized that it wasn't going to be like the transcendental, oh my god, this is the most amazing film experience I've ever had in my life.
Yes.
Once I sort of shed those expectations, it was way easier to enjoy the movie.
Yes. So I will say that there are things within the movie that you could find that are fun. You really can. Like, there's stuff in there, like there's Easter eggs. You see the 3 masks from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which I thought was clever. There was a callback to the first movie that I won't spoil that I thought was also really cool to see. It wasn't one of the flashbacks or anything. It was something he did in 2021 that was a callback to part 1 that I thoroughly enjoyed the way they did it. I liked the introduction of certain characters from part 1 back in 78. And so there were things in it that I can enjoy, which is why I said it's not the worst of the franchise. And because if you do really sit back and just think, all right, maybe there's people who are going to watch this movie who aren't diehard Halloween fans. They're just going to see a fun slasher movie. They're not going to critique it the way that I'm critiquing it because I fucking love Michael Myers and I think Halloween is perfect. So to me, I'm like, fucking A, why did they change this, that, and the other? But somebody else might be like, holy shit. That was sweet. I still think there were a lot of unnecessary scenes and way too much gore for that movie. They just did it just to do it. They just stuck it in places that it wasn't needed. But there were fun little things that you can discover while watching it going, oh shit, that was because in part 1 this happened, or oh shit, Season of the Witch Masks. Like, stuff like that was really cool. For the classic fans like me and you who have seen them all, we're going to pick up on that stuff, and it makes it more enjoyable for us. But I just think they changed the way that Michael acted too much. And I think if that hospital vigilante scene was cut out and Michael was played more like Michael should be played, I think it would have been great. And just those 2 changes would have made a whole world of difference to me.
Well, just picking up on what you just said, as well as what we were talking about earlier, going back to end of 4, kind of end of 5, end of H2O, if you go out with an enormous bang, you're not really doing the next guy any favors, or the next guy or girl, or whoever's writing it.
Right.
And they probably already knew what they were going to do before they said we're doing a trilogy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the next one is going to entail, but if you end a film by strongly insinuating that this is not a normal man,
mm-hmm.
and it's an indestructible force,
yeah,
well then, how are you going to dig yourself out of that?
Right.
Because you already cut his head off
right.
in H2O. I don't think they're going to retread old ground like that.
He's been blown up.
The fire thing, the fact that he, sort of circumvented that super easily.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, well, he's got to live because they got another 2 movies to make, so
Loomis did shoot him 6 times.
Yeah. Well, right. But I mean, like, if they scrapped all of that
yeah.
for the sake of, now he's just out and about,
yeah.
where's the supernatural stuff coming from?
Right.
Because I also read or heard that, the end of Kills may have been a dream sequence, which I would really loathe because that's just really lazy writing.
Right.
Just for the sake of, like, going out with one of those bang endings.
Yeah.
But it's all muddled now because Halloween 2018 felt like they were trying to be very moody and pretty simple, straightforward, like true to 78.
Yeah.
But obviously you can't make a 1978 movie in 2018.
Right.
I thought that they paid homage to a lot of different sequels
mm-hmm.
in a nice way. Kills was just very over the top, and now it's sort of stirred the pot too much where I don't know how they're going to come back in the next one to end this.
Yeah.
This latest sort of go around.
Yep.
Because tonally, like, the movies are so different. Like, Kills got into some camp. It was also, like, really brutal at times.
Yes.
It was really convoluted with, like, and preachy even with the vigilante shit.
Yep.
2018 just felt like a completely different, like a whole different team of people wrote it and put it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that all alarms me as far as like Halloween ends
mm-hmm.
next year, because I have no idea. Like, I would expect that they would go back to more of like the Halloween 2018 feel.
I hope so. I really do.
You can't do that so easily because like Kills
was so ramped up. Yeah, you can't ignore the one that's part of your trilogy. So it's not like they could skip it. But I don't know. I think it's got to be a little more toned down. As weird as that sounds.
I wonder if Kills was all a dream that Michael had in the basement from smoke inhalation, and he's just been.
Well, now it is because they're going to hear this podcast and do that.
Yeah, they're going to say Dan Graham came up with a stellar idea. How we get ourselves out of this mess.
Well, listen, this is the part in the show where we're going to end on our re-rankings. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from 10 to 1, and we're going to read ours. But before we do, I'm going to do Mike Burns because he couldn't be here, but he still sent me his list. I'm going to leave off the Rob Zombie ones because he included those, but I want us all to just have 10 instead of 12, 10, and 10. So his number 10 was Halloween 5, which was The Revenge of Michael Myers. Number 9 was Halloween Resurrection. 8 was Halloween Kills. 7 was Halloween 2. 6 was Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. 5 was Halloween 2018. 4 was H2O. 3 was The Curse of Michael Myers. 2 was the very first Halloween, and he ranked Season of the Witch as number 1.
Are you friggin' kidding me?
So that is Michael's list, and
that is some list, man.
Yeah, I think mine and yours are going to be way more similar than his was to either one of ours, because he's got a very specific taste, and I'm actually surprised but not surprised that Halloween 3 was his number 1. I know he loves it, but I still think Halloween 1 is a perfect movie, so I was a little bit shocked at that. But if you want to do your countdown, feel free.
I'm still just absolutely flummoxed here that he put 5 worse than Resurrection.
Yeah.
So that gives away number 10 on my list. The 10th worst Halloween movie is Resurrection. I would not recommend anyone watch it. Next for me, number 9, is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, Season of the Witch, and things have sort of shifted as of late. So, number 7, and this might shock you, is Curse
of
Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6 is Kills. Number 5, H2O. Number 4 is number 4. Number 3 is 2018. Number 2 is 2. And number 1 is 1978.
So we do have some similar things here.
So I'm going to write yours down as you're talking.
All right, yeah, we'll compare. So my number 10 is Halloween Resurrection. My number 9 is Halloween Kills. My number 8 is Halloween 5. My number 7, I believe, is the same as yours with Halloween Curse of Michael Myers, so part 6. My number 6 is Halloween 2018. My number 5 is H2O. My number 4 is Halloween 3. My number 3 is Halloween 4. See what I did there? Swap those two.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Part 2 from 81, and my number 1 is Halloween 1978.
Nice.
So I think we have like 4 of the same placements in there, but some of them weren't too far off.
Yeah, Kills, I totally thought was going to be like number 9 for me, the first night I saw it.
Yeah.
I felt, I think it's evident that me and you are super fans of the series.
Yeah.
I just felt really deflated and let down of, like, why did they make, all of these decisions? But I got over it. So, when I saw it the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, I think I've only seen it 5 times now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, for all of its problems, and it has a lot.
Yeah.
I just, gave it the benefit of the doubt quite a bit. And I was like, I do feel like they're doing some fun stuff here.
Yeah.
And maybe it just feels to me like how you were describing, your affinity for H2O. Mm-hmm. Because it just feels like they were trying to tap into, so let's just make this a fun movie. And for everything that I said about being concerned with, like, how are you going to get yourselves out of this mess, I don't really care at this moment. That remains to be seen as to what the script is going to be like for Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see, how it is going to end at this point, just because Kills really threw a wrench into all the gears.
Yeah, for sure. And it is a movie that, even after I finished watching it, I said, it can't be the worst thing, because I would watch it again. So, like, although I have a lot of problems with it, it's not Resurrection. So, I mean, that alone saves it. And I think it's cool, too, that the three of us, because I'm including Mike on this, like, we did have very different lists, although mine and yours are, like, fairly similar, because we had 4 of the same out of 10 movies. But, I don't know, like, you could just see the type of Halloween fan by the list that's being made, you know what I mean? And that's why I want to do the show, and I thought it was really cool, and we couldn't do it until we saw Halloween Kills, so it was like putting it off till the end, but it worked out, because here we are, and happy Halloween, because you're hearing this on Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, if we can, I would love to check in with Mike, who I've never met at some point, because the more I'm looking at his list, it's a real head-scratcher, as far as, I didn't think that 2 and 4 would be so far back.
Mm-hmm.
That seems kind of, like, blasphemous.
Yeah, I was actually shocked at that, too. When he sent it to me, I was like, wow, I really thought that 2 and 4 were 2 of the best sequels to the genre or the franchise, so that kind of threw me off.
And the fact that he has Curse as number 3 seems like an interesting dude.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to you guys being on the show at the same time, but it kind of worked out because it might have been 3 hours long.
That's true. I mean, yeah, because we could. I'm not going to, but we could even keep going for another hour.
I know. But I would.
The two of us.
I would like to have you back on, obviously, with some more horror movie talk, and we do have Scream 5 coming out in January, so maybe that's something that we can kick around and maybe do a non-spoiler movie review.
Yeah, I'd also love to. I was talking to somebody recently about revisiting. Scream had the great series for a while on MTV.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was kind of an underappreciated outlet for them. So yeah, look me up in January.
Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. I'm gonna let you go because we've been rolling for a minute, but this was fun, and I really enjoy your insights on it. Talking to somebody else who's a super fan of the franchise is always fun. It's more interesting to talk to you because you really have an in-depth hold on like what's happening, whereas other people are just like, I like Michael Myers, he kills people.
Yeah. No, yeah, maybe that would be like the 6-year-old version of me, but
yeah.
I've thought about it for an extra 29 years, so
yeah.
I have things to say.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being here again, and yeah, we'll find a bunch of stuff to keep bringing you back on because these are fun, so I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me, Rob. Happy Halloween.
You too, man. See ya.
All right, take care.
All right, rockers, so once more, happy Halloween. Be safe tonight, whatever you're doing, whatever you had going on this weekend. I hope you're all right. And have fun out there with your kids for all of our listeners who are taking the kids trick-or-treating. And thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
Happy Halloween from the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robby Vegas.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.